Welcome back to AWANI, still on International Women's Day 2025, where women entrepreneurs are a driving force in Malaysia's economic landscape. Yet many face structural barriers that hinder their growth, from limited access to funding and education to a survival-driven mindset. These challenges demand urgent and strategic solutions. But how can we ensure rapid progress without sacrificing sustainability? And what role do collaboration, mentorship and ecosystem support play in overcoming these hurdles? To help us unpack this pressing issue, joining us online is Alleena Abdullah, the founder of Tree Malaysia. Good morning, Alleena.
Hi, good morning, Nabila. Thank you for having me.
All right, firstly, the push for accelerating action is vital, but many women entrepreneurs, especially those from underprivileged backgrounds, face deep-rooted challenges. So how do you ensure speed without compromising sustainable growth at the same time, Alleena?
Thank you for that question. I think speed is something we really need to manage because we're looking at different facets of society here, yes? And applying our standards of speed and goals is really not something that's very sustainable. So for us, when we actually do a lot of workshops and we work with underserved communities such as B40 women, the importance of coaching and guidance is really critical because we really need to guide them step by step. And this is something that we all must understand because in terms of formal education, they also do not have that privilege of very structured ways of doing things. And entrepreneurship requires many different subjects. And I think in order to be sustainable and really still keep them on track so that no one is left behind, we do need to address the area of coaching and group support. And I was listening to the interview previously. It's also about well-being. Are we addressing the well-being of women first before we expect speed and acceleration, Nabila?
But we see that many aspiring women entrepreneurs lack of formal education in branding, marketing and financial management as we speak on entrepreneurship. So what are the most common knowledge gaps you see, and how can we actually bridge them effectively?
Well, I think before we go into knowledge, because that's the first thing we usually do, right? Knowledge, entrepreneurship, everyone is very eager to give workshops, etc. One area that I don't hear a lot of or about is actually nutrition and health. I think that is the first thing we must address, the well-being and the mental health, well-being of women in general, before we actually move and transition into the area of brand, marketing, finance, etc. And we are working, very closely with social entrepreneurs, and Ibupreneur is one of them. And they provide this very holistic way of creating value and adding value and bridging that knowledge gap, Nabila. But if you really ask about something technical, one of the things is actually very basic computer proficiency. How we can navigate around a simple laptop, emailing, moving around documents, because a lot of things when it comes to entrepreneurship requires online and tech knowledge. Basic computer knowledge, the proficiency there is critical, using the computer. The other thing that we see a lot of when we're in workshops is the ability to problem solve and challenge the status quo. So that could either be due to the fact that, of the way our education system is structured. Are we allowed to challenge? Entrepreneurship requires a lot of challenging and not following the, people in general, the herd. So I think if we bridge mental well-being of women and basic skills such as computer knowledge and problem solving, I think we could achieve quite a lot, Nabila.
Mm-hmm. So as you mentioned by you, Alleena, the major problem that's being that we should look out is on the well-being of women, physical and mental, and also the skills of computer proficiency and also the ability to problem solve. solving skills as well. And looking at all these three major problems, and this leads to excess of funding, which remains a major hurdle for women entrepreneurs as well. So how can they navigate financial challenges, especially when it comes to traditional funding that sources are limited? And what alternative strategies have worked for the women that you trained?
I think there are a few things here. There is quite a lot of funding and financial support from what I'm hearing in the market, whether it's KWSP or the various yayasan. And the challenge in terms of immediate funding, and we're talking about women who are really living day to day. We're not talking about having goals at the end of the week or at the end of the month. Is that are they getting easy access to the funding that they need to just survive, to feed their family, to take care of themselves? Right? That's the first thing that's important versus looking for funding for their business. But if you were to ask me in terms of strategy, how can we navigate these financial challenges, is actually start building competent and suitable organizations that are going to support their entrepreneurship goals. And I mentioned beforehand, Ibupreneur is one example where the model is very, very, from our point of view, very sustainable, where there's a boot camp and women are selected and they have goals, and there's a lot of coaching involved. So that allows not just financial support, because they can also get that in terms of grants, etc., but guidance to ensure that those goals are being met, Nabila. And in turn, whichever foundation, they're also responsible to mentor them and to ensure that there's efficiency. So I think it works both ways, and finding that synergy is critical. Right? Taking care of themselves, funding what they need, but also finding organizations that are going to help them not just take grants, but guide them, Nabila. That's what I think.
But we see that many women now start their businesses out of necessity rather than ambition, which is focusing on survival rather than growth, and also for their family as well. So how can we shift this mindset of them and equip them to scale their businesses sustainably?
Okay, so when we talk about communities, again, it's all this, the word scaling can be very scary, right? And I'm not sure if it actually is suited to those who are in the community, especially the B40 community, because the critical thing that we have to look at, and workshop after workshop, as much as we want to give that technical knowledge or know-how, it is how do we provide support for these women in terms of their health, their mental well-being, and eventually it also boils down to their children's well-being. Who's taking care of the household? Because these entrepreneurs, I think about 100% of them are taking care of their families, as well as trying to start a new business, right? So if we fail to understand these needs, there's no way of scaling a business, right? Many of us have that privilege of scaling and going forward because we don't have all that burden. So for me, it's all about ensuring that they have, the sanity to continue the next day. And I think that's critical in terms of sustaining their ambitions of being an entrepreneur.
And we see, another thing that we can look at is women entrepreneurs in Malaysia often work in silos. That's one of the problems. So how can we encourage more collaboration, also resource sharing, also mentorship among women-led businesses? And how can you from Yellow Tree as well play your role to help to minimize this issue?
Well, that's interesting, because I really don't believe that women really want to work in silos, because we're very nurturing. We love being around people, communities, and sharing ideas. Now, is there an opportunity, or should I say, is there a space for women to actually gather together and feel very safe to be who they are, right? And collaboration and resource sharing starts with trust. Mentorship and coaching starts with trust, right? And I would suggest, and the team as well, I'm sure they would agree with me, is to create safe spaces for them to be who they really want to be. And, in the boot camps that we do, the workshops that we do, we ensure that trust is built in that space. And so that they realize, oh my gosh, there are actually more women. It's not just me. There's so many people around us to support me. And that's when the sharing starts. That's when a lot of the really critical components of entrepreneurship really comes to life. And I only have, my wish is to ensure that there are more of these spaces created by all the entities around us so that women have a voice to be who they are.
So the focus now is to actually make their businesses sustainable in a bigger challenge as well. And what more important is to ensure their long-term success, especially in a woman-led business. So thank you so much to Alleena Abdullah, the founder of Yellow Tree Global, for your insights and for your sharings this morning. And this whole conversation can be featured, can be found on all of our social media platforms and astroawani.com.